Members, it is about time to make a start. We have a technical quorum. Item number 1, confirmation of minutes of the 14th meeting held on January the 23rd. The minutes have been made available. Can I take them as confirmed? All right, matters arising, nothing under that item. Business arising from previous council meetings. Legal Service Division report on subsidiary legislation gazetted on January 23rd and tabled on January 28th. Legal advisor, please. Chairman, will members please refer to paper LS 34. There are 8 items of subsidiary legislation. The first one is LN 12, air pollution control, non-road mobile machinery emission regulation. This regulation is in relation to the non-road mobile machinery, and they are like the dredgers, excavators, and tower cranes and so on. And it is required that an exemption will have to be sought from the EPD, and a label will have to be affixed to them. If in case of non-compliance, there is a penalty of $200,000 and 6 months of custodial sentence. This goes into effect on the 1st of June 2015, but to tie in with the government arrangement, some of them will go into effect on the 1st of September and the 1st of December this year. Subcommittee? No? Next, please, legal advisor. The next one is Builders Lifts and Tower Working Platform Safety Fees Amendment Regulation 2015. Chairman, this is in relation to fees for registration, registered contractor, and so on. The fee increase ranges from 9.7% to 10.6%. The last increase was in the year 2000. It comes into effect on the 27th of March 2015. SC? No. All right, next. There are 2 pieces here, LN 14 and 15. Construction Workers Registration Amendment Ordinance 2014, Commencement Notice 2015, and Construction Workers Registration Fees Amendment Regulation 2015. Chairman, this is about the construction workers. It goes into effect on the 1st of April. For the other sections, they will go into effect 24 months afterwards. That is the 1st of April 2017. And some of them have gone into effect. Now, for $50 will be charged for senior workers. For the others, it remains at $100. 1st of April is the commencement date. Subcommittee? No? Please, legal advisor. And Chairman, next, Anti-Money Laundering and Counter-Terrorist Financing Financial Institutions Ordinance Amendment of Schedule 2, Notice 2015. Chairman, this allows certain financial institutions to sets out the requirements relating to customer due diligence and record keeping, and intermediaries can be appointed like lawyers and accountants and chartered members of chartered company secretary. The arrangement will go on until the 31st of March this year. To extend this by 3 years, it is proposed that it will be extended to 2018. Mr. Toh, I propose a subcommittee. All right, Mr. Toh proposes a subcommittee. Who would like to join? There will be further circulation of invitation. Next, legal advisor. Chairman, the next one is Toys and Children's Product Safety Ordinance Amendment of Schedule 1 and 2. Notice 2015. This is to update certain safety standards for toys and children's products that are specified in Schedules 1 and 2. October the 1st this year is the commencement date. SC? No? Mr. Fernando Zhang. Yes, Dr. Fernando Zhang proposes a subcommittee and a member joining. Mr. Jeffrey Lam. Chairman, I'm not sure whether members know about this notice. Last year, the government consulted the members of the public and the stakeholder regarding the safety standards. The Toys Association has been consulted and no objection was raised. Now, this is merely a technical amendment and there is nothing controversial. I don't see the need for a subcommittee. Dr. Fernando Zhang, Chairman, I appreciate that. Of course, the trade was consulted. I hope that the users, in addition to the manufacturers and stakeholders, should also be consulted. All the relevant stakeholders should be consulted. I see the need for a subcommittee. All right, any member wishing to join? All right, there is a suggestion. You can save this till you join the SC. Paras 24-25, Chairman of the organizations consulted include major trade associations and organizations advocating children of welfare. Right, any member wishing to join the subcommittee? Again, there will be a further circulation of invitation. Legal advisor, please. Chairman, the last two fugitive orders, Czech Republic order, commencement notice, and mutual legal assistance in criminal matters, Czech Republic order, commencement notice. Both notices are going to be going into effect on the 23rd of February. The subcommittee did look into the notices, in particular the fugitive offenders Czech Republic order commencement notice. The subcommittee asked the administration, before it goes into effect, to make available a list of crimes applicable to the subcommittee. I understand that this has been complied with. All right, subcommittee? No. Just a reminder that for amendments, the deadline is the 25th of February. If extended, 18th of March. Further business for the Council meeting of February the 4th, 2015, tabling of papers, report numbers 11/1415. This covers 7 items. The deadline for amendment is the 4th of February 2015. And there are 2 items regarding the waste disposal. Notices Ms. Sid Ho, the chairman of the subcommittee, and Mr. Teng Ka-pil indicated their interest to speak. So in my capacity as chairman of the House Committee, I will be moving a motion to take note of those reports. Questions? Mr. Paul Che has replaced his original question. Business for the Council meeting on 11th, 12th, and 13th of February 2015. There are 22 written questions. Members' motion of thanks. I will, as chairman of the House Committee, move the motion of thanks. For amendment, the deadline is the 4th of February. As per the previous 2 years, we agree that we adopt the same arrangement as the 4th term. We're going to have 3 days of debate, which will be divided into 5 different areas. On the first day, it will start at 11 a.m. and for the second and third days, we will start at 9. For the first 2 days, I will end at 10:30. For the third day, if I will fail to end by 10 p.m., then we will extend the debate time until such time as we end the debate. All right, so the question is, we're going to adopt the same arrangement as before. Any comments? Just a reminder that the 5 different policy areas have been included in the Director of Administration's letter dated January the 27th. Do you agree with the main policy areas? All right, we so agree. There are 6 items. The deadline for amendment is the 11th of February. This has been made available to members. If you wish to speak, please notify the Secretariat before the 3rd of February. Position of Bills Committees and Subcommittees. As of 29th of January, there are 8 Bills Committees and 4 subcommittees under the House and 9 subcommittees under the panels that are currently in action. There is 1 on the waiting list. Amendments to Rule 83A of the Rules of Procedure proposed by the Committee on Members' Interests. Mr. Ip Kok Him. Chairman, the CMI proposed that Rule 83A be amended. The first one is to exclude common pecuniary interests from the requirement of Rule 83A on disclosure of pecuniary interest by members of the Council, of any committee or subcommittee. The second amendment is to require members to disclose pecuniary interests when they first speak on a matter in a committee or subcommittee, and repeated disclosures of the same interests at subsequent meetings are not necessary. The CMI has already consulted all the members regarding these 2 proposals, and the text included in the Appendix A. We consulted in the form of a questionnaire, and the findings of the consultation show that most of the members are in support. All the details are set out in Appendix 2. The Committee on Rules of Procedure also supported amendments to Rule 83A. If members are agreeable, then in my capacity as Chairman of the CMI, I will move a motion at the Council meeting on the 18th of March 2015 to amend Rule 83A of the Rules of Procedures. The wordings of the motions are set out in Appendix 3. All right, and members are invited to consider the 2 proposals. Any questions? If not, and then we so endorse the amendment. Suspension time of council meetings, please refer to CB 3408/14 to 15.
The paper 6 members will on the following, and that is if the business on the agenda is unlikely to be finished by around 10 p.m. on the day of the meeting, then the council suspension time will be adjusted to 8 p.m. Members' comments? Mr. Shin Chung-kai, the Democratic Party is against this concept, this proposal. We believe this would shorten the time for our debate. I understand that if we cannot finish on Wednesday and we suspend at 8, and then on Thursday we will have 2 hours less. Also, we will have 2 hours less on Wednesday and 2 hours less on Thursday. if the business cannot be finished on Thursday. In the past, many members' motions had to be carried forward because they could not be completed in time. And that would also reduce the opportunities for members to propose motions. We are against this proposal. The original system, that is suspension time set at 10 p.m., has been around for years. It's been working well. I know in recent 1.5 years, we have to carry on on the second and even the third day. This has become something of a regular system. So I think we should not change this system, which has been working well. Mr. Albert Chan, well, in the colonial era, the council started its meeting at 2:30, and it would be ended at 4:30. So they had a lot of time to do other things. In the past, the parties could just nominate someone to speak for the parties themselves, and now we have many independent members who understand the difficulties faced by the Secretariat, because after the meeting, the staff would have to stay on to handle other matters, and then on the next day they will have to come back to work. So this is about Secretariat support. May I suggest that Secretariat staff not to be asked to work in just one shift. If it's over 8 hours on a particular day, the staff should be relieved. There should be two shifts. And if there's something urgent, you can always get in touch with them by phone. I understand the workload of Secretariat staff, and I don't want to make their working hours too long. But if the business cannot be completed on the same date, then you want to suspend the meeting by 8 p.m. But it's difficult to estimate the finishing time. But because sometimes you think that you can cover everything by 10, but suddenly the more members speak, and the time will be longer. So maybe the Secretary General should consider working out something like a shift system, so as to reduce the workload. Mr. Yip Kok Kim, thank you. The DAB generally agree with this proposal from the Secretariat. We understand the problems of the staff. If the council meeting is just for one day, they would get some relief the next day. But if it's for 3-4 days, and after we have left, they will have to stay behind until 10-11 p.m. and they have to come back the next day. And if this happens week after week, well, it's difficult. Mr. Albert Chan suggests that there should be shift arrangements. I don't know whether they would have any implication on the staff numbers. Given the pressure faced by the Secretariat, I think we should work out something to increase our efficiency. So basically, the proposal is acceptable. Mr. K.K. Fong, I don't agree with the proposal. The current system has been in place for years, and also there are some merits of the current arrangement as set out in paragraph 16. So I don't think there's a case for making a change. And then by changing this, we'll give the public the impression that we would like to leave early. We are not as hardworking as in the past. So we might as well maintain the status quo. And if we are mindful of the difficulties faced by secretariat staff, I think we are talking about meetings that end at 12 midnight, maybe for staff working on that particular day, they should not be asked to come back the following back in the morning. I know you leave later than other members. Do you have to come back to work early in the morning? That's all the same, even though you have to stay behind after the council meeting? If that's the case, perhaps the Secretary General can do something about it. Would the Secretary General say something? I'll give him a chance to respond. For the FTU, the most important thing is to respect the findings of the Secretariat, and some members say that there will be less time for our debates. Well, yes, in 2008-2009, the average was not 11 hours, but in 2013-2014, 19 hours. If all the time was spent on debates, then it would be really remarkable. From February to October 2014, we spent 70 hours for quorum calls, 400 times of quorum call. So what was the time spent on? Quorum calls or debates? So the meetings have become much longer. And of course, sometimes the Pandemocrats do not really filibuster every time. But we have to look at the staffing resources and also our rules to make sure that the conduct of our meetings is efficient. We have to end at 3:15 and at 3:05 to allow the Secretary General to respond. So I've drawn a line. I've known Sin Chung Kai for many years. I admired him for that. Last time when the meeting was aborted, there was none from the Democratic Party. We have to consider whether the staff will be working for long hours, and the fatigue factor. Although we may consider shift arrangements, but can all the duties be arranged according to a shift arrangement? And of course, it's not good for their health. Last week, many members representing from FTU are here, but I'm concerned that other parties may not be able to do the same. If it's 10 p.m., we would tie in. We can keep to it. If it's 8 p.m., it's also okay, but we have to be mindful of the health of Secretariat staff. Mr. Wu Chi-wai, yes, the first important thing to consider is the pressure faced by the Secretariat. The work of the Secretariat is not straightforward and simple. But let's look at the manpower situation. I don't think that by reducing 1 or 2 hours of our council meeting time, the pressure can be relieved significantly. If they face work pressure, which increase manpower or other resources to meet the demand. As for meeting time, well, we have the different needs at different time, and depending on our own work schedule, well, we may want to see different arrangements for different times. But the system, the meeting time, has been in place for many years. Yes, in this current term, we have been spending more time on debates. More people have spent time to speak. So our workload has increased, and so has the workload of the Secretariat. So they need to consider manpower. I think the Secretariat should work out something to alleviate the problem first. And if that fails, we'll have to look at the resource implications. I'm also concerned about the adverse health impact on Secretariat staff. I don't agree that our meetings have been for such a long hour all the time. If we can suspend our meeting, at 8 p.m., then that will allow them some time to work with the papers. But we should not just ask them to work hard, and we can always go out to join parties. Last time, shortly after 8 p.m., no one from the Democratic Party was here, and the meeting was aborted. So are they really that hardworking? So we have to consider the health implication for our staff. So if our meeting is going to last for a few days, then I agree that we should suspend at 8. Mr. Lee Chok-yan, of course, we are concerned about the health implications of our Secretariat staff, and there should be work-life balance, and there should be at least 11 hours of rest. So I will not accept that then we suspend at 10 and then restart at 9 in the morning. If we end by 10, then I would say we should start at 11 the next day. Because if we can finish by 10, then there will be no need to have the meeting reconvened the next day. I think it's very hard for the Secretariat staff if the meeting is from 9 a.m. to 10 p.m. So for the first day, 11 a.m. to 10 p.m. For the next day, 11 a.m. or 2:30 to 10 p.m. So if we want to ensure some sort of consistency, why not 11 a.m. to 10 p.m.? I remember what Mr. Jeffrey Lam said when we had a debate on standard working hours. He's not in favor of standard working hours. If we don't have sufficient staff, we should increase the size of the staff establishment. Compared to the government, the legislature has little manpower to monitor the executive. So let's increase the manpower for the Secretariat. And I don't think you should try to save money if members are compassionate. Well, we should give them more resources. I know they have been working very hard. Mr. Chen Kim-po, well, you can see that in paragraph 15, if we shorten the time, that will facilitate a healthy work-life balance for Secretariat staff, service providers, public officers, and reporters and staff. And I asked whether we can have 2 teams, and I was told that the work is for a full team.
so there cannot be two teams. But the pan-Democrats are hypocritical. Last time when the meeting was aborted, members from a certain party were absent. But we have to be mindful about the long working hours. It's been said that this has been in the arrangement for years, but in the past there was no filibusters and there was no frequent quorum calls. Why don't we allow the rules, for example, Rule 37A, be amended? Why don't you ask the radical members not to filibuster anymore? Why are you talking about superficial views and please review why you are saying this? When you leave by 10 p.m., the secretary staff has to stay behind until 11, after 11 p.m.
Mr. Leung Kwok-hong, it's not your time to speak, Mr. Leung Kwok-hong. Mr. Leung Kwok-hong, if you don't stop, I'll order you out of the conference room. Mr. Leung. Mr. Leung, will you please leave? Mr. Raymond Chen. Mr. Leung. Chairman, I have to say something in fairness to the Democratic Party. Mr. Leung Kwok-hong, please escort Mr. Leung out of the conference room. Mr. Leung. Mr. Chen, I have to say something in fairness to the Democratic Party. Mr. Jeffrey Lam said that at 8-ish, none of the DP members was here. Mr. Wu Chi-wai stayed until 9-ish, and he was speaking on that day. I think you have to be factual. Now, people are getting the impression that the Electrical is using the Electrical Secretariat to end the meeting earlier. Now, if you end the meeting at 8, people will be leaving at 7-ish. I think the question is the question of manpower. It is said that the Secretariat is more mean than before to its staff. I don't have any evidence here. Now, the question is to increase the manpower. If you cannot achieve that within a short period of time, and if people are working flat out, then maybe as a temporary measure we can shorten the meeting, but ultimately the Secretariat has to work with the operation of the Council. It's not a question of the Council having to accommodate the Secretariat. I hope that when we talk about the standard working hours, you would vote in favor of the standard working hours. Whether the workers are being treated nicely, whether the workers are well treated, we have to address this question first. If in the near term you cannot achieve that, then we can discuss whether we shorten the meeting as a temporary measure. Well, I've drawn a line under Mr. Ray Chan. I've already announced that I said I have to end the debate at 5 minutes past. Civic Party hasn't spoken. Mr. Alan Leung. Right, I've already drawn the line. Nobody was in opposition. Mr. Alan Leung. Chairman, very simply, para 15, 1 and 2, we support the idea of suspending the meeting at 8 p.m. SG, Chairman. Members have put forward many different reasons that the Secretariat consider. Perhaps I'd like to highlight one point that wasn't picked up by members. our chief consideration when proposing the time is not because of the pressure the Secretariat is working under. Members have a point that the Secretariat has to work for the Council. If there is a need for longer meetings, then we'll certainly accommodate that. Now, the reason why we make this proposal is because when we look at the previous term and this term, in previous term, a quarter of the time saw the meeting go over one day. Now we have more than half of the meetings going beyond one single day. Now on Thursday we normally would blank out the schedule for the council meeting. Since we have 2 days blanked out for the council meeting, it would be a good idea to spread out the meeting. We're not doing anything less. We have 2 days scheduled for the council meetings. Perhaps we can suspend the meeting earlier on the first day, then it would mean a more optimum use of the time. Now we have about 100 staff in the Secretariat. We have officials, we have reporters, we have members and staff, and there are so many people who are going to be affected. And before the meeting, we have to be here 3 hours before the time, and after the meeting, we have to stay behind 1 or 2 hours afterwards. If we may experience some problems if we end at 8. So we are suggesting that we spread out the meeting. The first day, the meeting can end at 8 p.m. and if possible, then the meeting can end, all the business can be completed by 10 p.m. On some occasions, like the motion of thanks, debate, and on some occasions where it is necessary, we would agree that the meetings can be lengthened. But I must say that the Secretariat is here to support the Council's work. The frontline staff, in fact, is working in shifts, but there are certain jobs, certain work that cannot be split up. All right then. Let's put it to the vote. With those in favor, please raise their hands. Mr. Ray Chen claims the division. The bell will go for 5 minutes. So we will put forward our proposal to the President for him to take the decision. We're voting to see how many are in favor of putting this forward to the President. So the motion is to propose that if the business cannot be completed by around 10 p.m., then the suspension time of the Council will be adjusted to 8 p.m. Chairman, Mr. Wong Kwok-heng. Chairman, I'd like to take this opportunity to ask you to say to the President, or to ask whether the Secretariat staff can get a pay rise before the Lunar New Year. Well, this is not what we're debating. Well, I have to hear him out. I have to hear him out. Any member raising their hands, I have to listen to what they have to say. I didn't ask him to shut up. Well, a moment ago, Mr. Leung Kwok-hong spoke before I called upon him to speak and gave him repeated warnings. You were asking me what we are voting on. So how Do I know what clarifications Mr. Wong had? I didn't see anything on his behalf. All right, members, order please. A meeting is in progress. Will members please proceed to vote? Before I close the voting, please check your votes. If there are no questions, voting now ends. Please display the results. 63 present, 49 for, 13 against, no abstention. So the Secretariat will put this to the President for his consideration, and depending on the decision, it is proposed that this will go into effect in March 2015. No other business meeting adjourned.